Welcome to the Focus 3 podcast. Wherever you are and however you're listening, we are very happy that you've chosen to tune in. I'm Tim Kight, and I'm here with my co-host, Coach Urban Meyer.
Good to see you, Tim.
You too, man. I want to pick up really on what we talked about last time. I think this is a related topic, and we just previous episode was about winning the moment, and a great deal of it had to do with focus. Urban, let's continue with that conversation, and let's bring in focus and this important principle of energy and how we have to bring focus energy to everything that we do if we want to achieve greatness. Yeah, you've obviously in your career seen different levels of energy, and you're a high energy guy. I mean, one of the things that's clear, anybody's around you has experienced the Urban Meyer levels of energy. And I take it you're going to agree with me that focused energy is essential to achieving success.
It certainly is. And the profession that I was in for so long has a tendency to drain people of energy because it is a very long work days. And sustained energy is hard. You know, that's where you see a lot of coaches drinking Red Bull and the 5-hour energies, et cetera, et cetera. And just the way the world works and the coaching profession, which I mean a lot of executives I'm sure can relate to, is that the ability to have sustained energy, and more as important, or probably more important, the energy at the appropriate time needs to be on point. For example, when a coach they get about 4 hours a day with a student athlete, you have to be as high, that's got to be your apex of energy of that day. You have to train yourself to do that. If your energy is all, because we're humans, you can't have sustained energy for 14, 15 hours. That's a work day. So you have to really pace yourself, and you know, whether it be coffee, caffeine, whatever it is, but you have to really, in your mind, if I'm a CEO or executive and I'm going to have whether it's a sales meeting, whether it's be a meeting with my higher up staff, whoever, I have to really train myself, organize myself that at the apex, my apex of energy has to be at that most important time. And for us, for a coach, it's that 4-hour moment, 4-hour time period you're with your student athletes. And I would lose my mind when I see, you know, these coaches that, you know, I had coaches sleep in their offices before, and I had to kick them out, go home and get your sleep, get your rest, because I need your energy. Energy equates to production. There's zero production without energy. It's not going to happen. And so you have to sustain it somehow, and that's very disciplined. Mm-hmm. And we've all experienced it. The older you get, I mean, these are all real issues that creates lack of production. And lack of elite performance is when you can, quite often, it goes back to lack of energy.
To give energy, you have to create energy, and to create energy, you have to recover it. You can't go nonstop without recovery. So it's got
to be very defined too, what the energy is like. And I know this is going to come up in our conversation. It's got to be very defined. What are we focused on? What is this? And our focused energy is, you know, it's going to equate to production. If we all, you know, it's always a team. It's not you. It's a team. If you can somehow carry on this or identify you know, I like using that term. It's not something we really have not talked about, but I would really work hard myself, whether it be a 10-minute, you know, just relax for a second or just get my mind right. Because when I walked in that special teams meeting room, I better be on point, man. Mm-hmm. And that was 2:30 every afternoon. Maybe I didn't feel good, I was tired, whatever, but I better get myself right. That was the apex of my energy's moment. And the great coaches, the great leaders, when it's time, they're on it. Now, we all know we're humans. You can't stay there. I didn't say for the next 14 hours, now I need you to be at the apex of your energy, because that's you know, they're going to look at you like you're out of your mind.
We're going to talk about this topic of energy in organizational and team performance a great deal today through the lens of physics. And we know from physics that all systems require energy to operate, whether that's a mechanical system or a chemical system. And a company or a bank or a school or a football team or a hospital is a human system first, and a business or athletic or educational system second. And like all systems, companies, organizations require energy to operate. That's what physics states. And if you don't put the proper energy into your system, then your organization is going to underperform. Let's talk about how does a leader create and give energy to the system that they're responsible for leading. Let's get to work. Okay, so we're discussing energy. We're talking about how does a leader create energy inside the organization, inside a business, inside a team in order to help that team perform at maximum levels. And before we even get into the physics of it, I want to address that you hear a lot today about employee engagement, a ton about it. And we know this. We know that if there's a relationship, you said a moment ago, what was it, Urban? You said energy equates to production?
Yes.
And let's look at energy from an employee perspective. 4 levels of engagement in any organization in terms of employee engagement: cynical, compliant, committed, compelled. 4 levels of engagement. There are cynical employees, and those are the people who have quit but haven't left. Those are people in the organization. They're energy vampires. They're the ones who suck energy out of things. They're the ones who are not fully engaged and oftentimes actively undermining things that are going on inside the organization.
It's a term that I've used with staff members before, and it's a very direct and pointed, sometimes brutally honest, is you're a coward. Sarcasm and cynicism is cowardice. It's something where you don't have enough guts to step in and tell you what you believe in, and they kill a program. They undermine things, and we've all experienced it. And you have to, as a leader, you have to end it right now, because that can destroy you.
Interesting you say that. I have always believed and said as well that cynicism is the coward's way. It's the easy way out. It's talking about people rather than to people. It's gossiping behind the scenes. It's being in a meeting and acting like you're engaged, but you're not. Then you leave the meeting and then you criticize.
And unfortunately, I think that's, as being as direct as I can, I'm not sure you can change that. I've tried over the years, and I think it's just you got a bad employee. You got a problem. You got, I think someone that focused energy in the wrong place, skill set that's not quite refined yet. Those are all very fixable things. Sarcasm, cynicism within the organization, to me, now that I've reflected over my career, it's time to go.
My experience, a little bit different. My experience is about, I don't know the exact percentage, about half of those people or a third of those cynics are winnable, and about half or 2/3 are not. Yeah. And here's what I definitely
here's what you got to, sorry to interrupt, is that the amount of energy that you're going to expend on that person, and that's what, I've finally had a chance to sit back and reflect of 30-some years, is it really worth it where you could be putting that, first of all, I've hired you, do your job, and believe, this really is non-negotiables. And so that's the only thing. Can you save it, and is the energy worth it? That's what you have to ask yourself.
Yes, and you bring up a great point, and you're going to take time and energy away from more productive people who probably need your time more than those cynics are. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, the next levels, you start diving into that, you can elevate down.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, we could have long conversations about, but cynicism, I don't know why it's always struck me. That's one of the things that, you talk about pushing me off my seat. That was sarcasm and cynicism to something that you believe deeply in. You're poking the tiger now, because I just don't agree with that. The market experience, though, that I've had tells me, and I've got stories, I won't go into all of them, but I heard recently of a client of ours where a very cynical upper-level manager in an organization was transformed through going, to getting R-Factor training, getting Lead Now training, going through this process, and literally transformed. As a consequence of that, transformed their team. So it is doable, but you bring up a great point. And I think maybe one of the conclusions there is you teach that person these skills and tools. You like you say, build trust with them, establish the standards, and then equip and inspire them to do what they need to do. And if they don't self-correct, if they don't take the tools and do the work, probably a good opportunity for you to ask them to be a part of the organization's past. The one thing I'll say about that, though, is that you don't always know who those people are who will make the change. There are cynics out there who will change. You just don't know who they are. Right.
And that's the thing that I maybe breaks my heart the most about cynicism is we don't know who's reachable. The second level would be the compliant. So there's cynical, compliant, committed, compelled. The second level from the bottom are the compliant people, the ones checking the box, doing just enough to get by. They don't really do enough to get fired. They don't go beyond. they're compliant. They're kind of on autopilot. And I think about that group is they're susceptible to the gravitational pull of cynicism. And that's the other thing about cynics. Cynics spread their negative energy to other people. Cynics are the BCDers, the ones blaming, complaining, defending. And the compliant people make me nervous because of their susceptibility to moving downward into the cynical category. You've seen the compliant?
I have. I've also seen the cynic, or even the play. You know, there's obviously the world I was in. There was your staff, and then there's the student athletes. And I would always tell our players and our staff that the cynic or the sarcastic person always looks for the low-hanging fruit. They look for the fish, I call them, the people that really don't stand for anything. Because you know, I'm just the Tim Tebow's, J.T. Barrett's, Paris Campbell's. Terry McLaurin's, these are all these elite, for people who aren't aware who they are. They're our best leaders over the last 15 years that I've been around. They are so physically, mentally strong that a coward's not going to go have a conversation with that person, because that would be a very ugly conversation. Who does a cynic go after? The compliant, the person that's just there, their weakness. That's a weak fish. That's someone that they see a damaged. You know, they're predators. The way I look at a cynic, the coward, the cynic, the sarcastic within your organization, they're going to look for the wounded animal. You know, they're the predator,
the susceptible person.
Yeah, and they're going to say, "I can get him or her," and then they love company. So all of a sudden now, instead of one, you got three, you got five, you got seven, and that really starts to damage your organization. They are certainly not going to go after your compelled, or they won't even go after committed, because that conversation would get bad really quick.
Compliant folks are the ones managing the optics. They're the ones who are, again, doing just enough to get by, and they're managing their appearance, but they're not contributing strongly to the culture or to strategy execution. And to Urban's point, they're vulnerable to the influence of the cynics.
Which is more damage. The vulnerability is more damage than the lack of production.
Yeah.
Because once you start, you know, I don't think a compliant person will wipe you out. However, if they start to fall in the trap of the predator, the cynic, then you got real damage within your organization.
The third level, then we start to get into performance. We start to get into productivity. And the second from the highest level of employee engagement are the committed people. And these are the folks who do their job. These are people who come on time. They do what they're required to do. They're the people who are your steady producers. They're the ones who you can count on. If you give them responsibility, they're going to do it. And there's hopefully a strong majority of people in your organization are those folks who are committed, and they're solid performers. They're good. And they have potential to become even better, which we'll talk about in a moment, but those are going to be the bulk of people in a good organization, and you need them. And sometimes they're committed just because of the way they are. Other times they're committed because of how they're led, which, again, we'll get to, but very important group of people. But the highest level of employee engagement are the compelled. And these are the energy givers. These are the people who come early, stay late. These are the people who go the extra mile. These are the people who believe from the heart. And I do think the ultimate reason why the compelled are the way they are is, and maybe I can say it this way, and Urban, interested in your opinion. The committed people are committed from the mind, the head. The compelled people are just deeply believe from the heart level. Is that a fair observation about those folks?
Absolutely. And to go along with what you just said is that the way I've always looked at it as a committed person is we are all blessed with a skill set, and we work real hard at our skill set. The committed reaches the maximum point of their skill set, and that's about where they stop, because it starts to get very uncomfortable. I'm going to step in waters, and a power lifter. My body, it starts to hurt a little bit once I exceed this. And the same thing, I can give you the analogy of a guy that runs a 4.5 40-yard dash. And his body, you start pushing 4.4, it hurts. You experience discomfort. They don't embrace the discomfort. Yet they are very good employees. They reach the maximum point or skill set, and that's it. They stop.
I'm just sorry. I love the picture you just painted. The committed perform at their talent level. The compelled perform beyond their talent level.
They're constantly striving to excel and more. They embrace the discomfort involved with stepping out of your norm. And I'm going to go attack this. I know I've never done it before, but you know what? This will make us better. I'm going to go do this. Where they're committed, I'm good. I've done my job. Matter of fact, I've done it pretty well. And I'm going to go home now. And that's those. You need those people. Because you know, just the way the world was created, how many compelled people are out there? That's why that you do the 10-80-10 principle, and there's only a handful. Mm-hmm. And that's why at the end of the day, if you can somehow, and they are, and I've been a part of it hundreds of times, a committed guy can change. Mm-hmm. You can push a committed person to be compelled if you surround them with the right infrastructure, right people. The compliant and cynical, I don't know. But the two categories you have listed, which I agree with 100%, the committed, that's going to help you have success. The compelled are the most powerful people in your organization. Harness their power to go attack the committed.
That's a phenomenal picture. The compelled people lean into discomfort. The committed stop at discomfort. The compelled person just isn't satisfied with their current level of development, and so they continue to work harder.
So let's talk about that. So this is how do you go get? This is very harsh. Let's disregard the cynical. They have to, like you said, there's been examples where they have, and that's fine. That's fine. At the point in my life, we got to move on from them, and just make sure they don't damage your organization. The compliant, you're going to have some. If you have too many, you're a very average organization, and you're looking at a 7-5 season. And then the committed that's very good. And I think the laser lights need to be on the committed, because if you've done a good job recruiting, and in our world recruiting or hiring, you're going to have a very strong organization. How do you become stronger? You harness the power of the most important people in your organization. That's the compelled. People want to be around them. They want to be like them. They're your best workers. They're probably your highest paid. They have probably good lives because they're really workers, and their self-respect and self-discipline is incredible, and their work ethic's incredible. Those are the elites. And so how do you go get the compliant? You harness this incredible, massive power, the compelled. Those are your best people. And Tim Tebow and I used to say this. So did Paris Campbell. And hey, let's go get some of these guys. Let's get the committed and make them compelled. Yeah, if you do that, then you're talking about magic. Magic happens.
The 3 words came to mind as you're describing that of the compelled: focus, discipline, and energy. Or the 3 words that came to my mind: focus, discipline, and energy. The compelled people are more focused, more disciplined, and bring more energy every single day to the job. Fair?
Absolutely.
As a consequence of that, and this is one of the cool things, one of the powerful things about compelled people, they influence others around them to become better. They elevate the people around them. You hear this all the time. Leaders, ultimately, what a real leader is someone who makes the people around them better. That's what a leader is. I love the committed people, but oftentimes the committed person will do the job well and then stop. Whereas the compelled person isn't satisfied until other people around them are elevating. Therefore, the compelled person will hold other people accountable to the standards of the business.
Let's talk about that for a minute. So the compelled people, who do the compelled people like to be around?
Other compelled people.
And who, as you as a leader, who do you like to be around?
Other compelled people.
Because it's fun.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
I tell people the story when Gene Smith hired me at Ohio State. He never, talked about having fun. That was not part of the job description. The job description is build the most elite team you can. And okay, how do you build an elite team? Have as many compelled people as you can. The science is not that difficult. The execution of it is extremely difficult. So how do you do that? And that would be force and teach your compelled employees, your compelled players, your compelled people, these elite people, these people that are so engaged, the most energy, the most, the best. And you ask them and actually put a plan together. Let's go get the compliant, or let's go get the committed. Let's go get them one at a time. Then all of a sudden, you wake up one morning, and instead of having a small percentage of compelled, you got a greater percentage. And I remember I would sit there and draw circles on my desk and say, who are the compelled players on my team? And then who were the committed? I unfortunately had a few down at the bottom that you just kind of, you give them an opportunity, but then you got to move on because the energy strain to get them to move, you're wasting it. I shouldn't say you're wasting because you never waste it, but it could be redirected towards the committed. And so the most powerful, and this is a very strong, I believe it with my soul because it's testimony. The most powerful people in your organization are the compelled. Compelled like to hang with compelled. That's getting us nowhere because sure, they're going to do great, but the objective is to build a great team. How do you build a great team? Get more compelled. You have more compelled people than your opponent, you're probably going to win. So get more compelled. How do you do that? Go attack and put your laser lights on the committed and bring them up to the compelled.
Let's look at the 4 levels of engagement as 4 levels of energy, and let's go physics. Let's talk about physics. Cynical, low energy, negative energy, energy vampire. Compliant, minimal energy. Committed, good energy. Compelled, elite energy. Let's look at those 4 levels and think about the physics of organization or system performance. We know from physics that the best systems operate at their best with maximum energy. And we also know that systems, in order to perform and to operate, expend energy as they operate. And if energy isn't replaced as the system operates, the system will move towards disorder. That's called, just so that you guys know who have studied this or have read about it from high school or college physics, that's called the law of entropy. E-N-T-R-O-P-Y, entropy. Entropy is the measure of disorder in a system. Once again, a system expends energy to operate. As the system expends energy, you must replace that energy or the system moves towards less efficiency. It moves towards disorder. The great question in a company or an organization or a team, what is the source of energy for that organization to function and operate at peak levels? And the answer to that is leadership. Not money, not technology, not strategy, not operational processes, leadership. And if a leader is not injecting energy into his or her organization, then that organization is beginning to operate at an energy deficiency and is not performing at optimum levels. Again, leadership is the source of energy in any organization, whether it's a business or a hospital or a bank or a school or a football team or a basketball team. Leadership is a source of energy. So, Urban, let's take those 4 levels of energy, the cynical, the compliant, the committed, the compelled. If we were to take a survey right now of leaders across the country and ask them, what kind of people do you want on your team? Every leader would say, if we could do a quick survey, every leader would say, I want compelled people.
Right.
Okay. Here's the problem. I'm just issue this warning to our listeners. If you're a leader, a manager, a supervisor, if you want compelled people, you have to be a compelled leader. You have to. Your level of engagement, your level of energy sets the tone. I see this all the time, interested in your experience, but I see this all the time. I see compliant and committed leaders asking for compelled people.
Say that again.
I hear leaders who themselves are compliant or committed asking their people to be compelled.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It never works. In fact, that is frustrating. That's a heartbreaker for an employee. You agree with that?
Oh, and the reality, here's reality, is that to be sustained energy giver is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. That's the MUSAR, the discipline training that you have to, and you have to surround yourself with people that help guide you. Because the recipe that you just gave us, that committed or compliant leader that's asking for compelled people, it's going to break down really quick. And you as a leader at some point, and I felt this, you're compelled, yet circumstances, health, just the wear and tear, you start being more of a committed, and you can see the products start to fail. You can see things start to fail.
As leadership energy goes down.
Yeah. And that's where you got to surround, and this is a whole nother concept and story probably, and something that I personally experienced. If you surround yourself with as many compelled, then that's another reason why when I look at the cynical, how much energy do you have as a leader? And I've witnessed, this is real now. This is not when you're 36 years old and you got the world by the you know what and it's just full speed ahead. It's when you're 55 years old and you've been doing it for 3 decades. The wear and tear that happens, if you surround yourself with compelled people, your energy's picked up. And they need to understand that's their job. If you surround yourself with the cynicism and compliant people, the energy that you're expending on your staff and maybe not even your student athletes, which are the most important, that's real. And product fails. And that's a horrible feeling.
Yeah. Here's an important insight about this conversation. Listen carefully, everyone. If you are a compliant or committed leader and you're asking for compelled people, you are creating cynicism in your organization.
Wow. Yep.
I'll say it again. If you are a compliant or committed leader, but you're asking for compelled people, you are creating cynicism in your organization.
Let's add to that, and I just wrote this down here. Is that so? Okay, I think everybody understands what we're talking about. The more compelled people you have within an organization, and you as a leader, everything's going to be. I mean, production is going to go up. Imagine you got a very strong team, organization, company. So the question would be how. And I've always said this to our staff, and I put compelled also with your best leaders. And that is you recruit them, you find them. When you go out and look and you're trying to hire someone, you find that, it might be, and once again, I hear this out there, the narratives about black, white, male, female, none of that matters. Are they great at their job? Do they have the qualities, characteristics? Are they energy givers? So you recruit them. In our world, you recruited them or you hire them. In corporate America, I imagine same thing. You recruit and hire them. If also you develop them. You have systems in place to teach people the value and importance. That's where, when I met you 7 years ago, we put systems in place where we developed this. So you recruit it, you develop, and then also you reward the mess out of it. Mm-hmm. You take these people, and they are different. You treat them different. And not everybody's treated the same within organizations. We try to do that. It's a meritocracy. It drives me nuts when I hear people, well, everybody's going to be treated the same. You're lying. That's not. You're going to reward that's why certain people have corner offices on the 72nd floor. Then there's other people that don't. It's because you have to reward, but make sure you reward the compelled people. So the committed can see this reward, and we're all humans. I want to be like that. And that's how you start so you recruit it, you develop it, and you reward it.
What role does feedback play in that journey? What role does accountability play in that journey in terms of when you see people performing, and what role does that play?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Is that I've had, I've always been raised in the household and in the people I work for, that it's called transparent conversation. It seems like the further we remove from that in this new generation, that's hard conversation, and I don't understand that, what they're saying hard. If I'm an employee, I work for Fox now, I work for Gene Smith. If I don't want to necessarily be told what I'm doing well, I want to be told how to become great. I see that, I've felt that change over the last couple decades, where all of a sudden, people need to be patted on the back. I get that. But this is what you need to work on. So self-evaluation is very hard. I've been struggled with that before because I never felt I had someone to help me, when I need. Don't tell me, it's like Tom Brady. Tom Brady, and I don't know this for a fact, but this is what Tom Brady, the great quarterback in New England, Tom O'Brien, who used to coach him at New England, he's now the head coach of the Texans. Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien. And Coach O'Brien told me that Tom Brady made it clear that I never want to be told, nice throw, Tom. That's Donald Duck.
He knows what he does well.
Yeah, I want to become great. And the best coaches I've ever been around, the best players, the Paris Campbells, how can I get better? I want to give me input, give me direct teaching here, so I know how to get better. I don't need if I'm a committed or compliant. I imagine the compelled person wants to keep pushing, and that's what I've experienced.
Physics tells us that organizations operate according to energy. We know that to be true, And we also know what I said a moment ago, that when an organization or a system expends energy, in order for it to continue to operate at peak levels, that energy must be replaced. There's another element to this, though, that's important. It's not energy in general, and I think this is, Urban, what you've been talking about. It's focused energy. It's not energy in general. I mean, this may sound like an odd example. It's not, actually. If I take a blueprint of a house and I take all of the component parts that would go into that house, from all of the 2x4s and the 4x4s and the nails and the air conditioning and all of the bricks and all of the cement, all the elements that go into a house, and I put it onto a side of a hill on a lot and bathe it in the energy from the sun, thermal energy. You got blueprint, which is design. You have all the raw material, and then you have the thermal energy from the sun. The house won't get built. In order for the house to get built, it needs focused energy. A craftsman has to come along and take the energy and focus it on doing the work necessary to build a house according to the design of the blueprint. It's not just energy that is required for an organization to operate at peak levels. It's focused energy.
Right.
A leader is someone who brings focus, discipline, and energy to the enterprise in order for it to operate. And they're constantly bringing it. If you lose focus, you lose performance. You lose discipline, you lose performance. You lose energy, you lose performance. Leadership is that unique activity that brings focus, discipline, and energy every single day to the enterprise. One other thought, and I think you've said this, I believe you have, and I'll slightly rephrase it, and I'll make sure that we're in alignment on this. You don't have to have a title to be a leader.
No, of course not.
That you have to be someone who positively influences the people around you.
Right.
Leadership is not authority based on a title. It's influence based on how you behave, the trust that you've earned, and the kind of credibility you have based on the kind of a person you are inside the organization. And you can have the title and not be a great leader. You can not have the title and be a phenomenal leader. I bet you've seen a lot of people in your career who didn't have a title or authority, but who were awesome leaders, and vice versa.
They certainly were. And Mike Vrabel he actually changed my thought process. Mike Vrabel, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, was on my staff in 2012, I believe. Yeah, 2012, and he made a comment to me one time that I wasn't elected captain. And I couldn't believe that, because he's one of the best leaders I've ever been around. And I said, why? He said, well, we only had 2 captains. And that's when I think that's wrong. And so I used to have limits on how many captains I would have. And if the Ohio State people did anybody research, there was times I had 9 captains or 8 captains. And I never put a limit. A matter of fact, the more captains you have, the better I felt. And so I would try to give people titles, because unfortunately a lot of times you need a title for that authority. I don't agree with that one bit. But just the way the world works is, if you have captain in front of you, you have boss in front of you, whatever, for some reason you're supposed to be the only leader. And that's not the way the world works. Your best team is full of compelled people that have energy, that lead, that raise the level of performance of those around them. That's when you're a leader. Yeah. And I tried to give as many, if in my mind, there was times I really didn't care which way the team voted, that I would say I felt very strong about this person because I witnessed it, our strength coach witnessed it. He's earned this title. Not everybody has them, but I tried to, that whole Mike Vrabel story, I changed. I don't know how many executive vice presidents you have in your organization. But, well, we're only allowed to have 3. Why? Tell me where's that rule that says you're only allowed to have 3? If someone earns that right, remember what we said now, you recruit it, you develop it, and then you reward it. Mm-hmm. You better reward that, because we're all humans. And, that's one of the strengths I believe that we had, that we would really reward people that compelled people.
Interesting. Your organization can put you in a position of authority, but only you can put yourself in a position of leadership. The organization can say you're your executive vice president. Your organization can say you're general manager. Your organization can say you're foreman, your principal, your superintendent. But you put yourself in a position of leadership, influence, credibility, based on how you behave. And don't equate the title with the competencies. Don't equate the title with the credibility that's necessary to be a true leader. If the organization has put you in a position of leadership and you're not compelled, there's a problem. If the organization puts you in a position of authority and you're not a compelled person, giving focused energy and discipline to the people around you, there's a problem. It's interesting in physics what a laser does. We've talked about this a lot, Urban, you and I, in the past, about a laser is a mechanism that takes the diffuse rays of light and concentrates light so intensely that it can cut through steel, or so precisely that it can do eye surgery, or with such specific application, it can do guidance for a smart rocket or a smart bomb. A laser has tremendous concentration of energy, which gives it phenomenal utility and can be used for lots of different things. Light is generally, most of the time, is diffused, but a laser concentrates light. Now, interesting thing about it, energy, light in this instance, doesn't concentrate itself. Folks, think about this. Energy doesn't concentrate itself. It needs a mechanism to focus. When it comes to light, that mechanism is called a laser. In an organization, that focusing mechanism is called leadership. So there's energy available. The question is, have you grabbed it? Are you focusing it and applying it to the things that your organization needs to do? In the last episode, we talked about win the moment. You described Army football. Can you, and I didn't prep you on this, can you take what we said last time, what we're talking about right now, and then reapply it to Army football?
Absolutely. Army football is the conversation we had, the previous podcast was all about the I don't want to say brainwash again. You had another much better.
Disciplined mind,
but brainwashing. You're taking young people and you're directing them to do the unthinkable, to do if you presented a plan to them, or if you present something to them that is unachievable and something they can't grab a hold of, you're not going to achieve it. However, if you break it down to the smallest point, concise point that they've been trained to do, you can move a mountain. And it's that focused energy on something. And I told you, I just put myself in that team room because I've been there. If I can convince you people that all we need to do is focus our energy, everything we own, on 3.5 yards, you'll never lose a game. You'll never lose a game. That's an infallible statement. That's an objective truth. We can do this. We've been trained to do this.
Laser focus in the moment.
Yeah.
Laser
focus. Lights on this, 3.5 yards, not going in the big house in front of 110,000 people. That's insurmountable. You can't do that. You're not created to do that. However, we all can do this. You've been trained to do this. All right, now take your laser lights and we're going to focus on this. Let's get 3.5 yards. How do you do that? As hard as you go with the skill set that we trained you to do. Laser focus.
The coaching staff at the U.S. Military Academy, Army football, brings focus, discipline, and energy, play-by-play, to executing in the moment. Fair statement?
Absolutely. As good as anybody.
As good as anybody. That is how you win, folks. You win the moment with elite leadership, where there is intense focus, there is disciplined action, and then there's high levels of energy moment by moment. And you don't allow your focus or your energy or your discipline to be diffused by the future or the past. It's laser beam in the moment, play by play, moment by moment, action by action. That's how you win in life, in business, and in sports.
Let's talk for a second about entropy, which that was a term that me and you have had much conversation about. I never really quite understood it until about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and that was always fearful for me that if it wasn't moving in the right direction, it would start to break down. Things break down. And the more I sit and evaluate, so you have a laser light. You hold a laser light, and you never take your thumb off it. Eventually, that laser light's going to burn out. And so one of the things I think a leader has to really, and going back to the cynical, compliant, committed, and compelled, the 4 levels of engagement, the 4 levels of energy within your organization. And remember, my comment was you recruit it, develop it, and reward it. The opportunities have sustained energy is you have to surround yourself with energy. If you surround yourself with energy takers, you're going to have burnout fast. Mm-hmm. You're not going to survive. And that's why I admire guys like Coach K at Duke. There's very few out there I've had sustained. I think Nick Saban Alabama. I think we did for 7 years at Ohio State. You had sustained high energy. And I was very focused on surrounding myself with energy givers. And I wouldn't have much tolerance for those that were not. I've seen people fail, and when a football team fails, the media and the fans go immediately to the coach. It's the coach's fault, which it is, because he's not a bad coach. You don't get to that level of performance. The number two people they attack are the players. They have bad players. No, they don't have bad players. What's the issue is within the organization, you don't have enough compelled people. You haven't recruited it, you haven't developed it, and you haven't rewarded it. So when I look at organizations fail, I don't look at saying that person's a bad person or bad coach. I always say lift up the hood and you're going to find out something within the organization. And in my experiences, it's because you don't have enough compelled people. You have sarcasm, cynical people that have kind of permeated through your organization. You didn't end it, or you have too many compliant, but you have not attacked the committed, and you don't have enough compelled. When you get measured for rings, the common denominator on every team that I've ever is you have a wealth of compelled people. You have energy givers throughout your organization, not just student athletes, but staff, support staff, secretaries, trainers, everybody. And you recruit it, identify it, and go get it. You have a plan in place to develop it, which it has to be part of your DNA, which we've done, and then you also have to reward it, and reward it big time.
If you do an assessment and an analysis of elite organizations, any domain today, you're going to find what Urban just described. And I'll wrap it up and summarize. We're talking about how does an organization or a team perform at maximum levels? Well, we know from physics that in order to operate, you must have max energy. That's the way elite organizations operate. There's max energy. And there's 4 levels of energy in a given organization. There's the cynical people, which is negative energy. There's the compliant people, which is on the bubble, moving towards cynical oftentimes. There's the committed, which is good. There's the elite. There's the compelled. That's max energy being injected into the organization. But you as a leader get the energy that you provide. Your organization will have no more energy or engagement than you provide. You set the tone. Your level of engagement, your level of energy sets the tone for the kind of energy that your people deliver in an organization. If you want greatness in your company, in your business unit, in your school, in your team, you need to bring focus. You've got to bring energy, and you got to bring discipline to it. It's like a laser. A laser is concentrated energy, and that's your job, is to lead like a laser.
The one thing I want to add to that before you close is that, remember, energy, there is a finite, there's a maximum, there's an end all to energy. You can't say I have unlimited energy, because that's not true. And I want to reiterate to the point that you need to surround yourself with those that are energy givers, because your energy, Tim, will run out. Mm-hmm. So will mine if you're not supported, if not, someone's not replenishing that energy. And who does that? That's compelled people within your organization.
That, and I would add to it as well, and maybe this is a topic that we can address in a future episode, and that is, you'd better be good at recovering your own energy. Yeah. You chuckle. Why did you chuckle?
Yeah, I think I'll skip that one.
Yeah. Well, we should address it, and not right now. Right. Yeah. We'll talk about that, and that's very important though. And you chuckle at that because, we've all experienced this. And that is, sometimes we run out of energy, or our energy turns negative.
Right.
It happens to all of us. It's real. That's the real world. And if we're going to be great, we have to be great at recognizing when we need more energy. And I'm with you 100%, Urban, and that is, let's surround ourselves with the right kinds of people. And so let's lead with focus. Let's lead with discipline. Let's lead with energy. And let's build organizations where we are constantly injecting the right kind of energy to inspire and develop our people to operate at peak levels. Be that kind of a leader. Go do the work.